Good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming. I'm Tuck Hines, the director of the Smithsonian Environmental Research Center. We're pleased to have the county executive and some of his staff here for an important Earth Day announcement. Before we get started with that, I wanted to explain a little bit about the significance of this site. This is a big experiment that we call biodiversity. It's a forest, a newly forming, growing forest. It's your forest. It wouldn't exist without the help of citizen scientists and volunteers who came out 6 years ago in a very cold and rainy spring to help John Parker, our chief scientist down at the end of the table here, and runs our terrestrial ecology lab, to plant the trees in 2013. It took about 100 volunteers and to help plant over 20,000 trees in this site and around the adjacent farm fields that were in corn up till that point. And 5 years later, the tree's been growing since then, and we've had another 60 volunteers who've put in over 500 hours to help keep this forest going and take the data from this experiment. So it's been an important opportunity for us to do a number of things. We created the forest really to help restore Chesapeake Bay and the landscape of Chesapeake Bay. And the forest that we're conserving and growing here helps the bay in a number of ways. First of all, this is a forest mitigation bank. It's officially registered with Arundel County as an off-site tree mitigation bank, and it provides the county with 7,500 mitigation credits. What does that mean? Well, developers and governmental agencies that that are doing construction projects and have to cut trees for various reasons have to replant and replace those trees as a part of state legislation for keeping forests on the watershed. And they often can't replant those trees on the site where the construction project is. Smart growth, for example, tells us to concentrate impervious surfaces and buildings together where there won't be enough room for trees. But they can come here and buy mitigation credits from this forest that we planted here to account for the trees that need to be replanted. So this is a mitigation bank. It has a permanent easement on it, which means that it will continue in forest in perpetuity. It cannot be developed for any reason into the future. Secondly, this forest here provides an important buffer to a stream that flows through the taller trees that you can see downhill from here. That's an important stream. A lot of research at CERC had been done on the effects of cornfields and its discharge on the watershed into that stream, which led to the critical area legislation that helps manage and protect streamside buffers on both the stream and on the shoreline of Chesapeake Bay. That forest helps to absorb the nutrients that run off of the land and get into the water and head to Chesapeake Bay, because the goal is to keep the nutrients out of the bay and reduce the overproduction there. So that's an important aspect of what we're doing here as a forest mitigation or forest buffer. Third, this site and this forest really provide additional landscape services. As these trees are growing, they're capturing carbon and pulling it out of the atmosphere and sequestering it and helping to trap rainwater, reducing the effects of climate change. So a typical tree absorbs about 30 pounds of carbon per year as it's growing. And we planted 20,000 trees. So this forest that we planted is basically taking up about 500,000 pounds of carbon out of the atmosphere every year. That's about the equivalent of taking 50 cars off the road every year, which is helping work against the problem of burning fossil fuels and climate change. In addition, many of our forests around the Chesapeake watershed are being fragmented. That means cut into smaller and smaller pieces and patches. And that reduces the amount of habitat that certain bird species and other species that need the middle of the forest as their critical habitat. Those are called forest interior dwelling species, FIDS. And this forest here is helping to connect several patches of forest and adjacent to the other forested land that CERC operates here and protects. So this is creating larger contiguous block of forest and increasing the interior dwelling species habitat. So that's an important difference between those species that like the edge effect of forest. And then, of course, we're all scientists here, right?
Yeah, or at least we believe in science.
We're all scientists here. And whenever we launch a big experiment, a big project like this, we like to see how we can use that to answer important questions. So we call this site biodiversity because we're clever with our words, and we want to understand what the effect of tree species diversity is on the function of the forest here. So John Parker will explain it to you after this, but these trees are planted in patches of 1, 4, or 12 species of trees. This is a 12 species patch here, to understand how the number of species of trees in a patch can affect the functioning of that forest. And we've already learned a few critical things about the forest in just the 6 years that we've had these trees growing. Remember, they were all seedlings 6 years ago, just this high, and now some of the ones down there are 25 feet tall. But the plots with higher species diversity function better. They're more stable and more resistant to change and more resilient. And they produce a number of other services. For example, the high species plots are more resistant to deer browsing. We have lots of deer in Anne Arundel County and lots of deer here on Steuart property. And the deer don't have as big an impact on high species diversity plots as they do on single species plots. Another thing is that in the high species plots, there's more insect species, much higher insect species. And that's an important finding at a time when the globe is suffering a decline in insect species worldwide. So that's important. So this forest has been growing for 6 years now, and we'll keep studying it for at least a century. So we hope you'll come back again before that time. But only the Smithsonian would set out to do an experiment that's 100 years long, right? And it supported 7 Smithsonian scientists, 8 postdoctoral researchers, 6 graduate students, 14 undergraduates, all hailing from 11 different organizations and different countries from around the world. So it's bringing science here into Anne Arundel County and helping to advise our research, but also to advise how we can manage our ecosystems more sustainably in the future. So the cool thing that we're doing here now is both funding and supporting research and to provide additional professional training and education for the students and for the public, and to conduct our public engagement programs here that will increase awareness about the tremendous environmental resources that we have in Anne Arundel County. So this is a wonderful site, and we're very pleased to have the county executive here and talk about some of his programs.
This is a great way to start Earth Day. We have some other events going on today down in Annapolis, and every day should be Earth Day, of course. But for me, living close to CERC, it was really a no-brainer to do the announcement of this Citizens Environment Commission here at CERC. And you know, I grew up knowing about CERC. My parents would go to a lot of the speaker series and New Tuck, and were involved always. But it wasn't until a few weeks ago that I actually sat down with Tuck and some of the staff over in the office and got a partial briefing, I'm sure, on everything that's going on here. And I hadn't realized how much was going on here. And I also didn't know that this place is open to the public. And that I thought a bunch of nerdy scientists just want to do their work and not be bothered. But I guess 10 or 20 years ago, you figured out that maybe engaging the public was a good thing. And I'm glad you're doing that, you know, with the new education center and everything that's going on here. I came over on my bicycle yesterday. I know it was closed, but I came anyway, and rode around. And I mean, just what a beautiful, how many acres is it?
2,650 acres.
God, 2,600 acres of preserved land right on the water where there's this research going on. And let me just mention a few of the research things. I know this is really Tuck's department, but I mean, to me, it's just a huge honor to know that this work is going on in Anne Arundel County. You know, the biggest thing is this is where it was proven that trees prevent the nutrients from ending up in the water that go to the Chesapeake Bay. And had that not been proven by you all, we wouldn't have a watershed restoration projects in the county. We wouldn't have any of the programs that we're doing, because without the science to prove it, there's always going to be a policy debate and somebody's going to come up with an argument on the other side. But once you all did this research, this got us on the road to finally cleaning up the water and the bay. But the bigger picture, I think it was you all who taught the world that what the rise in carbon dioxide levels were doing to our environment, and then invasive species. You all have done a lot of work on that as well, knowing that there are species coming in and species going out on these tankers from the Baltimore Harbor. But this project is especially important, obviously, because it is a place where our forest mitigation money goes. The developers pay when they cut down the trees, and they're not only planting the trees, which we need to restore trees in the county, but they're actually doing the research to figure out how to plant trees. The forest conservation program in Anne Arundel County has been very frustrating to me, and the fund is pretty close to depleted right now. The last $2.5 million went into the pocket of a developer who was notorious for cutting down trees. So we have to restore that fund so that we can do more of this work. And this Citizens Environment Commission is going to be working, Matt has already started to work on policy to improve our forest conservation bill at the county level. The fees will go up when you cut down trees. The goal would be to stop cutting down trees for development, and then we wouldn't need to be replacing trees. But we've got in the county, we've got people who really do care, and I think it's partly because of the work that you've done. Probably more than any jurisdiction I've ever heard of, they care about the environment. It was big in the election. It's one of the reasons that I'm standing here, is that we have 533 miles of coast. People moved here because they care about the environment. They care about the natural beauty of this place, and it shows up in elections. And so to not have had in this county an environmental policy director was nuts. So we fixed that with Matthew Johnston, and he hit the ground running. He didn't come in until a couple of months after I took office, so it's only been about a month or
6 weeks.
6 weeks. Okay, and every few days there's a new idea that comes shooting through the email from Matt, and we have an ambitious agenda, and you'll be hearing a lot more about that. But then it was our transition committee led by Kate Fritz, who recommended not only that we have Matt, but that we also have this Citizens Environment Commission. And to me, it was a bit of a shock that we didn't already have one. And part of the reason it was a shock is because we have so many brilliant people in Anne Arundel County, some working for organizations and some that are just active in their communities, that have so much to say. And to have them all coming together on a regular basis, talking about policy, advising me, advising the county council, is going to be incredibly useful, so that we're not just thinking of ideas and then implementing them, but they're coming from the communities around the county. Parallel to what they do, of course, we have the general development plan that we're just starting in the county. And we had a meeting last week, Saturday, with Smart Growth America and Governor Glendenning. We only had about 2 weeks notice to let people know about it, and I was worried nobody was going to show up, because who wants to spend all day on a Saturday in the spring talking about planning and general development plans? And we had 240 people there. We tried to cut it off at 200, and they just kept coming. And it was a fantastic all-day meeting where they talked about smart growth and visions of ways to move forward in this county that are positive. We often think just about what we don't like. And then they did small groups. And that process is moving out into the 16 small areas of the county. And we're going to have a series of 16 meetings coming up in the next couple of months. So I think Anne Arundel County citizens really do want to preserve the natural beauty of the county. We've made a promise to the Chesapeake Bay. I feel like it's a promise to the actual body of water, that we're gonna bring back the health. I mean, it is very sick. It's like it's dying on a hospital bed when you look at that water and you can't see more than a few inches down. And we have a commitment to restore that water and restore the life to that water. And this is where it's all starting. So we are here to sign an executive order to create the Citizens Environmental Commission. And Kate Fritz is going to be our chair. You have agreed, right?
Yes.
I didn't actually make the phone call. Matt did. But it's kind of a no-brainer to have Kate be in charge of this. Kate's been involved at the community level. You were part of the original Watershed Stewards Academy class, right?
Yep.
And you're on the board of the Watershed Stewards Academy now. And when the budget comes out, you'll like what you see. We're going to expand the work of the Watershed Stewards Academy. They have, through volunteers, done work all over this county that's amazing. But also Kate works with the Bacon Ridge Stewardship Committee over by Crownsville Hospital Center, Recycling Advisory Committee. Any others?
That's all for now.
Lots, I'm sure. So we're going to be in good hands having Kate chair this committee. So somewhere I see something that says sign here, right?
That's right.
So I will read what it says before I sign it, as I do all documents. And it says, Executive Order number 8, to create the Anne Arundel County Citizens Environmental Commission. Whereas a healthy environment is vital to the quality of life, health, and economic vitality of county residents. And whereas the county executive is committed to protecting the county's sensitive environmental resources for all current and future county residents. And whereas a body of residents with expertise in environmental matters is critical to providing advice and recommendations to protect the county's environment. Now therefore, I, Steuart Pittman, County Executive, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Charter of the Laws of Anne Arundel County, Maryland. Did you write this? Hereby order and direct on this, what's the date?
22nd.
22nd. Day.
Just right, Earth Day.
Yeah, Earth Day, right? Of April 2019 as follows. The Anne Arundel County Citizens Advisory Commission is created. The commission shall meet with the frequency it determines necessary to perform its function under this executive order. The commission shall meet at least 4 times a year. 12 might be more appropriate. All meetings shall be open to the public and shall include an opportunity for public comment. Members of the commission shall be residents of Anne Arundel County and shall be appointed by and serve at the pleasure of me, County Executive. The commission shall consist of 13 voting members as follows. 1 representative from each of the following 9 watershed assessment and planning areas: Patapsco River, the non-tidal portion, Patapsco River, the tidal portion, and Bodkin Creek, Magathie River, Severn River, South River, Little Patuxent River, upper portion, Patuxent River, middle and lower portions, and Herring Bay, West River, and Road River. Thank you. We know where those are on a map. That was A. Now B, 4 representatives from environmental nonprofit organizations with offices in Anne Arundel County. So that's the composition. Each member shall be appointed for a term of 2 years and shall not serve more than 4 consecutive terms. The county executive shall appoint a voting member as chair. The county executive shall assign, done. The county executive shall assign the environmental policy director as coordinator, done. The commission shall recommend actions by the county to protect the county's environmental resources, including but not limited to clean air, clean water, open space, forests, and wildlife, promote clean renewable energy solutions to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and defend more than 500 miles of shoreline and adjacent and nearby communities from rising sea levels. The commission shall submit an annual report to the county executive that fulfills responsibilities set forth herein, as well as prescribes priorities for the next year. The commission shall meet annually with the county executive. He may actually be at all the meetings. We'll see. I might not be able to stay away. This executive order shall be archived at the Office of Law and shall remain in effect until altered or rescinded by a subsequent executive order. We hope that never happens. This is a great Earth Day initiative because, let me get this other one here. Sign it in blue. Because I really believe that this committee is going to come out with a lot of recommendations. We won't be able to implement all of them, but we will work on them. So here we go. All right. We now have, we have the executive order.
Stand up.
Now we have to pick all the people.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kate.
Thanks, Matt.
Are we going to hear something from Kate? Is that the plan or not?
Kate, do you just want to say just a word? Just a word about...
I am more than excited to be standing here today with this executive order on Earth Day in such a beautiful location in Anne Arundel County. I've lived here for 15 years of my life. I have been working in local nonprofit work here for the last 4 years, having headed up the South River Federation and now heading up the Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay. I had the honor of serving on the transition team and leading the recommendations to the county executive regarding environmental policy and work in Anne Arundel County, and I couldn't be more honored to serve in this position today. To me, this is a real commitment to the citizens' voice in Anne Arundel County. This is a commitment to say we respect and we want to hear it as part of our government moving forward. So I'm very excited to be the first leader of this commission. So thank you, Mr. Pittman.
Thank you.